Well, he's written just about everything there is to write in the world of sports. He's considered one of the best sports writers of his generation, and I've been reading his stuff all the way back. Oh, boy, A Season on the Brink, I think even further than that, to Tales from the Q School. He's now gotten into children's books, and he's great at that as well. John Feinstein, friend of the show, New York Times bestselling author, is back with the book called Foul Trouble. Good morning, John Feinstein.
McGraw, good to talk to you again. I think when I wrote Season on the Brink and you were reading it, we were both teenagers, right?
That is exactly right. You got into the last couple of years writing, I don't want to say children's books, kids' books, but young adult thrillers, more or less.
Yeah. You know, the short version of the story is my son Danny, who is now 19, about 8 or 9 years ago, wanted to start reading some of my stuff, and I didn't think Season on the Brink was a great starter book for a 10-year-old. And my wife, Christine, said to me, you know, you always tell stories about the kids. Why don't you try to write something set in the sports world for kids? And I, as you know, have been to about 1 million Final Fours, so I set a mystery at the Final Four with 2 teenage heroes, a boy and a girl, who are both reporters who win a real writing contest in Last Shot, that was what the book was called, and go to the Final Four and uncover this attempt to blackmail a star player. And the book did great. It won the Edgar Allan Poe Award for mystery writing for young adults, as you said. And so I've written since then 5 more of those books with those same two characters. But this book, Foul Trouble, is a little different because I've always wanted to try to find a way to tell the truth about everything I've learned about basketball recruiting through the years. And the problem is you can't get anybody to go on the record. And so this was a way, by making the characters fictional, but telling real stories, of giving people, I hope, an idea of what college basketball recruiting is really like, and also, I hope, tell an entertaining story at the same time for teenagers.
You're a good enough writer and well-respected enough. I want you to. So the fact that you had to write a fiction book to tell to tell the truth.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly right. The book is faction. There are a lot of real people appear. A lot of the stories that I tell are absolutely true. A lot of it is universal in the sense that every kid, you know, the Jabari Parker and Andrew Wiggins and Julius Randle, the 3-star freshman this year, have all gone through what the character in the book, Terrell Jamerson, goes through, with shoe company reps, street agents, and AAU coaches, and friends at home who all of a sudden want to be around him all the time, want to be his posse, not to mention the coaches, obviously. It's all based on stuff that really happened. But again, I had to change the names to protect the guilty because I've been doing this for a long time, as you know, McGraw, and I have coaches all the time say to me, this is how Coach so-and-so got that player. This is what happened. And I'll say, okay, put it on the record. Oh, I can't do that because there's this code.
Right.
You might remember years ago that there was an incident between Iowa and Illinois where Bruce Pearl turned in Illinois because he had a tape of a player telling him what he'd been offered by Illinois. Well, in the coaching world, the bad guy in that incident was Bruce Pearl because he was the whistleblower.
Right.
And which is ironic since he ultimately got put on probation in Tennessee. But that's the way college basketball works, and that's one of the things I'm trying to explain in Foul Trouble.
The book is called John Feinstein. The book is, well, he's John Feinstein. The book is called Foul Trouble. Does your 19-year-old book critic approve of this book?
Yeah, you know, he does, actually. And it's funny because my son Danny's now 19, my daughter Bridget is 16. And in all these kids' books, they're my first editors. They have actually helped me because, for example, in one of the books, I had the 2 kids IMing to one another. And I still remember my daughter rolling her eyes and saying, Dad, nobody says that on IM. Nobody talks that way. You're such a dork. And so they've been very helpful with me. For example, I had a thing where one of the 2 best friends in this book, Terrell Jamerson, and his buddy Danny, who's a point guard, and named after my son, by the way, who's not as good a player but is a good player. they're talking, and Danny is teasing Terrell about asking a girl for a date. He says in the original version, he says, "Oh, you get one date, you think you're Joe Jonas." And my daughter Bridget told me, "Oh, Joe Jonas is so yesterday. You got to come up with, you look like a dope if you put Joe Jonas in there." So I don't even remember who I replaced Joe Jonas with because I think he's out now too.
Yeah, exactly.
And she pointed out to me I was a dork for mentioning Joe Jonas.
It's really good you have young consultants for you on this book.
Absolutely. For this book is important.
The book is called Foul Trouble. John Feinstein with us this morning. Everyone's talking about Alex Rodriguez and his meltdown yesterday. What are your thoughts?
Well, that's a good word, isn't it? Meltdown. I mean, he basically had a temper tantrum. And because my guess is, obviously I wasn't there, is he's starting to realize this isn't going to go his way. And that he's in a heap of trouble, and he can't talk his way out of it. He can't charm his way out of it. He can't buy his way out of it, which is what he's done most of his life. And the fact is, it's an arbitration hearing. It's not a court of law. You can't subpoena somebody. Major League Baseball is entitled to send in who they want to represent them and speak on their behalf, just as Alex Rodriguez is entitled to send in who he wants to speak on his behalf. He's not required to speak to the arbitrator either. And it sounds like he had a tantrum, as you said, stormed out of there and went running to Mike Francesa to try to say everybody's out to get me. At some point, my parents used to point this out to me when I was a kid. At some point, when everybody thinks you're wrong and you're the only one who thinks you're right, maybe you might want to look in the mirror.
Yeah. He's went on Katie Couric and said he never took steroids and emphatically denied it. And then a few years later came clean and admitted it. I mean, does this guy think we're all fools? I mean, how many times is he going to dupe the American people?
Yeah, well, I don't think he's duping anybody at this point, McGraw. I really don't. I think that it's one of those things where you can't just say, well, this time I'm not lying. Because why would anybody believe somebody who's proven himself to be a congenital liar?
Yeah.
I think it's a shame. The guy was a great player once upon a time. I think he was a great player. He would have been a great player and a Hall of Famer without steroids, much like Barry Bonds. Now he will not be a Hall of Famer, much like Barry Bonds. And I really think that's too bad.
John Feinstein, the book is called Foul Trouble. It's for young kids and anybody who loves the game of college and or just a great story, great writer, John Feinstein. John, you're always welcome on the show whenever you want. So thanks for coming in. Drive safe, and we'll talk to you down the road.
McGraw Kelly, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
You got it. 728 here in St. Louis, Big 550, KTRS. John Feinstein. That book,
like a really good book.
It is a good, yeah. Mm-hmm. He's a great writer. A season on the brink he spent with Bobby Knight at Indiana.
Really?
And was given unfettered access to
Wow.
what it was like to live under Bobby Knight for a year. It was a really good story.
I bet that was
It
interesting.
was a really good story. 728 here on the Big 550 KTRS.
Illinois concealed carry license.